William Harrington strode through the expansive gardens of his estate, the sun casting a golden hue over the meticulously manicured hedges and vibrant flower beds. The air was thick with the scent of blooming roses, yet he felt none of the warmth that such beauty typically inspired. Instead, his mind was a tempest swirling with thoughts of loss and regret. It had been a few months since his mother passed away, a loss that gnawed at him daily. Despite his wealth and success as a businessman, William felt a profound emptiness that no amount of luxury could fill. He paused by an ornate fountain, its gentle gurgling a stark contrast to the chaos in his heart. He could still hear her voice, soft and melodic, guiding him through the complexities of life. But now, all he had were memories stained by the shadows of her mysterious death. The police had ruled it an accident, but William had his doubts. She had been too vibrant, too full of life, to simply slip away without a trace. He rubbed his temples, trying to ward off the headache that was forming, a physical manifestation of the emotional turmoil he was trapped in. "Mr. Harrington," a voice called out, breaking his reverie. He turned to see his estate manager, an older man with a grim expression, approaching. "There's a situation in the gardens that requires your attention." William sighed, his irritation bubbling to the surface. "Can't it wait? I'm not in the mood for more issues today." "It's about the gardener, Marcus Thompson," the manager replied, glancing nervously over his shoulder. "He's been, well, let's just say he's been acting strangely." William's curiosity piqued. "Strangely how?" "I'm not sure, sir. But I overheard him speaking to someone about a necklace. It seemed important to him." A necklace. The word echoed in William's mind, and suddenly, the memories flooded back. He remembered the exquisite necklace his mother wore, a delicate piece adorned with intricate designs and a single glimmering gemstone. It had been a family heirloom, passed down through generations. But it had vanished shortly before her death, lost in the chaos of grief and the aftermath of her passing. "Show me," William said, his tone sharp. The manager nodded and led him through the lush greenery, weaving past blooming azaleas and towering oaks, until they reached a small, secluded area where Marcus was diligently tending to a patch of daisies. Marcus Thompson was a man of the earth, his hands calloused and worn from years of labor. He was in his 30s with sun-kissed skin and dark hair that fell in waves around his face. There was a quiet strength about him, a resilience that came from facing life's challenges with grace. But today, as William approached, Marcus seemed distracted, his eyes darting toward the ground as if he were hiding something. "Marcus!" William called out, his voice booming through the serene garden. Marcus looked up, startled, and immediately straightened his posture. "Yes, sir," he replied, his tone respectful yet wary. "I heard you've been speaking about a necklace. What do you know about it?" The gardener's eyes widened, and for a moment he appeared lost for words. I don't know what you mean, Mr. Harrington." William stepped closer, narrowing his eyes. "Don't lie to me. I saw you wearing something around your neck. It looks familiar. Where did you get it?" Marcus instinctively reached for the necklace, fingers brushing against the cool metal. It was a small, delicate piece, one that had belonged to his mother. "It was a gift from my mother," he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. "Your mother?" William's heart raced. "What do you mean? That necklace? What does it look like?" "It's a family heirloom," Marcus continued, his expression shifting from fear to confusion. "My mother said it was passed down through generations in our family. It represents hope and resilience." William's mind raced as he processed Marcus's words. The pieces were starting to fit together, in a way that both intrigued and infuriated him. "It can't be," he muttered under his breath. "That necklace belonged to my mother. I know it did." Marcus frowned, sensing the accusation in William's tone. "I assure you, I didn't steal it. My mother gave it to me before she passed away. It means everything to me." "Then how did you come to have it?" William pressed, his anger bubbling to the surface. "I want to know the truth." "I told you," Marcus shot back, his voice rising. "It was a gift. My mother struggled her whole life, and she wanted me to have something to remember her by. I don't know how it's connected to you or your family." William took a deep breath, trying to rein in his emotions. He could feel the weight of his privilege pressing down on him, but the anger was still there, raw and unyielding. This is not just a coincidence, Marcus. That necklace has a history, and I need to understand how it's in your possession. The gardener crossed his arms defensively. And what are you going to do? Demand I hand it over? You don't get to dictate what I do with my mother's legacy just because you think it belongs to your family. William opened his mouth to respond, but the words caught in his throat. He could see the pain in Marcus's eyes, the same pain that mirrored his own. This wasn't just about a necklace, it was about loss, grief, and the lengths people go to hold onto their memories. For a moment they stood there, the tension thick in the air, neither willing to back down. It was a standoff of sorts, two men from vastly different worlds colliding over a piece of jewelry that represented so much more than its material value. Finally, William took a step back, shaking his head in frustration. I need to find out where it came from, Marcus. If there's any chance that it's connected to my family's past, I have to know. With that, he turned and walked away, the shadows of doubt and anger trailing behind him. He felt a strange mix of emotions, confusion, anger, and an unexpected sense of loss for the connection he had hoped to reclaim. As he left the garden, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of something deeper. A thread had been pulled, unraveling a tapestry of secrets that had long been hidden. And as much as he wanted to dismiss Marcus, he knew that their lives were now intertwined in ways he could not yet comprehend. In the garden, Marcus stood frozen, clutching the necklace tightly, feeling the weight of both his mother's legacy and the confrontation with the wealthy businessman. He realized that the necklace was more than just a piece of jewelry. It was a symbol of his struggles, his past, and now perhaps his future. And as he returned to his work, he couldn't shake the feeling that he would soon be drawn back into the world of William Harrington, whether he wanted to be or not. The air was thick with uncertainty, and both men were on the precipice of a journey that would challenge their understanding of family, love, and what it truly meant to be wealthy. Marcus stood frozen in disbelief, the sudden confrontation from William Harrington, the owner of the estate, leaving him momentarily speechless. The tension in the air crackled between them, the weight of the moment pressing down like an anvil. He instinctively reached for the necklace that hung around his neck, feeling the cool metal against his skin. It was a gift, he finally managed to say, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions swirling inside him. My mother gave it to me before she passed. She said it belonged to her mother, and her mother before that. It's a symbol of our family's resilience. William's brow furrowed, skepticism etched across his face. Resilience? You're telling me that this necklace just happened to come from your family? It looks exactly like the one my mother wore. I need to know how you got it. The anger in William's voice cut through Marcus like a blade, but he stood his ground. I don't know what to tell you. I can't help where it came from. All I know is that it's precious to me, just like your mother's memory is precious to you. This necklace is a part of my story. What story? William shot back, frustration simmering just beneath the surface. You're just a gardener. How could you possibly know anything about my family? Maybe because I've worked in these gardens for years, Mr. Harrington, Marcus replied, his voice rising with a mix of indignation and hurt. Maybe because I've heard stories, whispers of the past. It's not just dirt and flowers out here, it's history. William took a deep breath, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly as he regarded Marcus with a mix of curiosity and confusion. What do you mean? What have you heard? With his heart racing, Marcus took a step closer, the necklace glimmering between them like a fragile bridge. I've heard about your mother, how she was generous, how she cared for others, how she was loved by many. And I've heard that she had a secret, something that tied her to this neighborhood. William's gaze softened, and for a brief moment he was reminded of the stories his mother used to tell him during quiet evenings at home, the tales of their family's past that had always seemed so distant. A secret, he echoed, his voice quiet now, almost a whisper. Yes, Marcus nodded, his expression earnest. A secret that might explain why this necklace is so important. You see, my mother always said it was a reminder to stay hopeful, to keep going no matter how hard life gets. She believed in the power of family and the bonds that tie us together. William considered Marcus's words, feeling a flicker of something he hadn't felt in a long time: curiosity. Do you think it's possible that this necklace is not just a piece of jewelry, that it holds more significance than we realize? I believe it does, Marcus replied, his voice steady. It's a legacy, a connection between our families that we might not even understand yet. Perhaps it's time to uncover that connection. William's mind raced, memories flooding back of his mother's stories, of her laughter and the warmth of her presence. He thought of the heirloom that had gone missing years ago, a family treasure that had been lost in the chaos of their lives. Could this necklace be the key to unraveling a mystery he had long since buried in his heart? I need to find out more, William said, determination creeping into his voice. I'll look into my family's history. Maybe there are records, something that can shed light on this. Marcus watched as William's demeanor shifted, the anger transforming into an inquisitive resolve. Just be careful, he warned softly. Some truths can be painful. I can handle it, William replied, a fire igniting within him. I need to know the truth, not just for myself, but also for you. If this necklace truly connects us, then we both deserve to know. As the two men stood together, the garden around them seemed to bloom with possibilities, the flowers reaching toward the sky as if echoing their shared desire for understanding. But just as the tension began to ease, Marcus's thoughts drifted to his own struggles, the weight of being a single father, the pressure to provide for his daughter, and the ever-looming shadow of financial insecurity. Mr. Harrington, Marcus said, his voice steady but filled with an undercurrent of emotion. I appreciate your willingness to look into this, but I have my own burdens. I have a daughter to care for, and the weight of this necklace, this legacy, sometimes feels too heavy to carry alone. William's expression softened again. I understand, I've been alone for a long time. My mother's death, it left a void that I've struggled to fill. I can't imagine the challenges you face as a father. Marcus nodded, the connection between them deepening. Every day is a struggle. I want to give my daughter the world, but sometimes it feels like I'm just treading water. This necklace is a reminder of my mother's strength, but it also reminds me of my own limitations. What if I could help? William asked, his voice sincere. Not just with the necklace, but with whatever you need. I might be able to assist you without compromising what this necklace means to you. The offer hung in the air, heavy with unspoken implications. Marcus hesitated, weighing the gravity of William's words against his own pride. I don't want charity, he replied finally, his voice firm. I want to earn what I have. William respected that, recognizing the fire in Marcus's spirit. I get that, but sometimes we need to lean on each other. We can uncover the truth about the necklace together, and maybe in the process we can help each other find what we're both missing. Marcus considered the proposition, the weight of his responsibilities pressing down on him. I appreciate that, Mr. Harrington, but I need to think about this. Of course, William replied, the spark of understanding igniting between them. Just know that I'm here if you decide you want to explore this further. We both have our legacies to protect. As William turned to leave, Marcus felt a mix of hope and apprehension swelling in his chest. For the first time in a long while, he felt the possibility of change. Perhaps this unexpected encounter with the wealthy businessman could lead to something greater, a chance to rewrite their stories, to bridge the gap between their worlds. With the sun beginning to set, casting a golden hue over the garden, Marcus touched the necklace once more, feeling its cool surface beneath his fingertips. Whatever lay ahead, he knew one thing for certain. He was no longer alone in his journey, and that was a comfort he hadn't anticipated. William Harrington sat in his dimly lit study, surrounded by towering shelves, filled with leather-bound books and framed photographs of family gatherings. that felt increasingly distant. The room, once a sanctuary of success and ambition, now felt suffocating, a silent witness to his melancholy. He leaned back in his plush chair, his gaze drifting to the fireplace, where embers crackled softly, casting flickering shadows on the walls. He had spent the better part of the evening sifting through old family records, hoping to unearth a connection to the necklace he had seen around Marcus Thompson's neck. The moment he'd glimpsed that familiar piece of jewelry, a wave of anger and confusion had washed over him, igniting a desperate need for answers. He pulled a dusty box from beneath his desk, filled with letters and trinkets from his mother. With a deep breath, he began to rummage through the contents, flipping through yellowed papers and faded photographs. As he unfolded a letter, the elegant script of his mother danced across the page. "My dearest William," it began, and he felt a pang of nostalgia. It continued, "There are secrets in our family that I hope you will understand one day. Some are not meant to be carried on, while others are a part of who we are." His heart raced as he read, realizing that his mother had hinted at a truth buried beneath years of silence. The mention of secrets sent shivers down his spine. What could possibly lie hidden in their family's past? He read on, intrigued. "I had a friend once, someone who came from a different world, yet we shared a bond that transcended our circumstances. She lived in a neighborhood that is now long forgotten, but her spirit and the memories we forged remain etched in my heart. I hope one day you will understand the weight of our choices and the impact they have on those around us." William's mind raced, connecting the dots. He recalled his mother's tales of her youth, stories filled with laughter and moments of kindness amid hardship. But who was this friend? And how did Marcus fit into the picture? He pushed the letter aside, determination coursing through him. He needed to find out more. Meanwhile, across town, Marcus Thompson was dealing with his own turmoil. The late afternoon sun cast a warm glow on his modest home, a stark contrast to the shadows of uncertainty creeping into his life. He was busy preparing dinner for his daughter, Mia, who was just 5 years old. The sweet smell of sautéed vegetables filled the air, but Marcus's mind was elsewhere. He had received an unexpected visit from Jason, a childhood friend who had taken a darker path in life. "Man, you need to be careful," Jason had said, his voice low and serious. "I heard some guys talking about valuable stuff in the neighborhood. You know, things that could make you a target." Marcus had frowned, the weight of his mother's necklace pressing against his chest, a reminder of the past and the struggles that still lingered. "It's just a necklace, Jason. It doesn't mean anything to them," he replied, trying to sound dismissive. But the unease gnawed at him. "Don't be so sure. You know how these guys are. They'll do anything for a quick buck," Jason warned, his eyes darting nervously. "I'm just saying, keep your head down. Don't flaunt it." As Jason left, Marcus felt a knot tighten in his stomach. The necklace had been a symbol of hope through his mother's stories, a connection to her love and sacrifices. But what if it put him and Mia in danger? Could he bear to lose it? Later that evening, as he tucked Mia into bed, the little girl snuggled her favorite stuffed animal, a worn-out rabbit. "Daddy, can you tell me the story about Grandma again?" she asked, her eyes bright with excitement. "Of course, sweetheart," Marcus replied, sitting on the edge of her bed. He began to recount tales of his mother, how she had worked tirelessly to provide for him, how she had taught him the value of kindness and resilience. The necklace around his neck felt heavier as he spoke, a reminder of the legacy he wanted to preserve for Mia. "Did Grandma have a lot of treasure?" Mia asked, her innocent curiosity shining through. Marcus chuckled softly. "Not treasure like you think, honey. But she had something more valuable: love and memories." Mia nodded, her eyes fluttering as she drifted off to sleep. Marcus lingered for a moment, a mixture of pride and sorrow swelling within him. He wanted to keep his mother's memory alive, but the weight of their financial struggles loomed over him like a dark cloud. Back in his study, William could hardly sleep, the letter's words replaying in his mind like a haunting melody. He decided to visit his mother's old friend's house, the one she had mentioned in the letter. Perhaps there were more answers waiting for him there. The next morning, he donned a casual outfit and ventured out, driving through the familiar streets of his childhood, feeling a sense of nostalgia. As he arrived at the quaint neighborhood, he noticed the contrasting vibrancy of life compared to his estate. Children played in the streets, neighbors greeted one another with warm smiles, and the air was filled with laughter. It was a world so different from his own, yet it felt comforting. He parked his car and walked down the sidewalk, eyes scanning for the house. Finally, he spotted it, a small, charming home with a garden bursting with colorful flowers. He knocked on the door, heart racing, anticipation buzzing through his veins. An elderly woman answered, her face lighting up with recognition. "William, my goodness, you've grown," she exclaimed, pulling him into a warm embrace. "Mrs. Jenkins," he replied, a smile breaking across his face. "I've come to ask about my mother." As they settled into her cozy living room filled with knickknacks and photographs, William felt a sense of belonging he hadn't experienced in years. "I found a letter from her," he began, explaining the connection he felt toward Marcus and the necklace. Mrs. Jenkins listened intently, her eyes glistening with memories. "Ah, your mother spoke so fondly of her childhood. She had a dear friend named Clara, who lived nearby. They were inseparable." "Clara Thompson?" William asked, his heart racing at the sudden revelation. "Yes, Clara and I shared many adventures. Your mother was always so compassionate, always willing to help those in need," Mrs. Jenkins reminisced, her voice tinged with nostalgia. "When Clara passed away, I know it broke your mother's heart." William sat back, the pieces of the puzzle falling into place. Clara Thompson was Marcus's mother. The necklace was not just an heirloom, it was a link to an unbroken bond between their families. "But what happened to the necklace?" he pressed, eager for more. Mrs. Jenkins sighed. "Your mother told me once that it had been passed down through generations. It was a symbol of love and protection. But when Clara fell on hard times, she had to sell it to make ends meet. Your mother always regretted not being able to help." As the weight of the revelation settled over him, William realized the depth of their intertwined lives. Marcus was not just a gardener. He was a keeper of a legacy that William never knew existed. "I need to speak with Marcus," William said, determination flooding his voice. "I need to understand." "Then you must go to him. But remember, William, sometimes the greatest treasures lie not in possessions but in the relationships we forge," Mrs. Jenkins advised, her eyes twinkling with wisdom. With a renewed sense of purpose, William left Mrs. Jenkins's home, ready to confront the truth that awaited him. The sun was setting, casting a golden hue over the neighborhood. As he made his way to Marcus's house, he felt the weight of the world upon his shoulders, but this time it was accompanied by a flicker of hope. Arriving at Marcus's modest home, he knocked on the door, his heart racing. When Marcus opened it, surprise washed over his face. "William, what are you doing here?" "I need to talk to you," William replied, stepping inside, ready to unveil the truth that would change everything. As they settled into the small living room, the air was thick with unspoken emotions and the weight of their shared history. "About the necklace," William began, his voice steady but filled with urgency. Marcus met his gaze, a mix of defiance and vulnerability in his eyes. "What about it?" "It belongs to both of us," William declared, feeling the gravity of his words. "Our families are connected in ways we don't fully understand yet. I want to help you, Marcus. I want to understand what it means to you." Marcus's expression softened, the tension in the room shifting as their worlds began to collide. "Why do you care?" Marcus asked, skepticism lacing his voice. "Because I've realized that true wealth isn't about money or possessions. It's about the relationships we build and the legacies we leave behind," William replied, his voice earnest. As they stood there, two men from different worlds, the weight of their shared history began to unravel, revealing a path toward understanding, redemption, and a future that neither had anticipated. The air was thick with tension as William Harrington stood on the edge of the expansive garden, his eyes fixed on Marcus Thompson, who was tending to the flowers. The sun had begun to set, casting a warm golden hue over the landscape. But for William, the beauty of the scene was overshadowed by the whirlwind of emotions churning within him. The necklace glimmering on Marcus's neck felt like a thread connecting their vastly different worlds, a thread he was determined to pull. "Why do you have it?" William's voice cut through the tranquil evening, filled with an intensity that startled Marcus. "That necklace, it belonged to my mother. How did you come by it?" Marcus straightened, a mix of surprise and defensiveness washing over his features. He'd been lost in the rhythm of his work, his thoughts drifting to his daughter's smile and the struggles of the past week. Now, facing the wealthy businessman who employed him, he felt the weight of their contrasting lives crash down upon him. "I told you before," Marcus replied, his voice steady but laced with an edge of frustration. "It was a gift from my mother. It's been in my family for generations. It means everything to me." "Everything?" William scoffed, taking a step closer, his voice rising. "You think this is just a trinket? This is a piece of my mother's legacy, a part of our family history." Feeling cornered, Marcus took a deep breath to calm his racing heart. "And it's a part of my history too. My mother worked hard to keep that necklace safe. It's a symbol of resilience for me, not just a piece of jewelry." The air crackled between them, a palpable tension that seemed to still the world around them. William's eyes narrowed, caught between anger and a flicker of understanding. "You don't know what it represents to me," he shot back, struggling to maintain his composure. "You don't know the pain of losing someone so close, of having their memory tied to something so tangible." "I may not have your wealth or your privilege," Marcus said, his voice firm. "But I know loss. I know what it's like to hold on to memories when everything else feels like it's slipping away. This necklace is my connection to my mother, just as it is yours." William hesitated, the heat of his anger cooling as he studied Marcus's resolute expression. The gardener's words struck a chord within him, awakening feelings he had long buried beneath layers of grief and resentment. He took a step back, his posture softening. "I didn't mean to," William started, but the sound of thunder rolling in the distance interrupted him. Dark clouds began to gather overhead, and the wind picked up, swirling the fallen leaves around their feet. "Looks like a storm is coming," Marcus said, glancing at the sky, the tension between them momentarily forgotten as they both recognized the brewing tempest. "We should probably get inside." But before they could retreat, the first raindrops began to fall, quickly turning into a torrential downpour. "The garden!" Marcus exclaimed, instinctively rushing toward the delicate flowers that had been meticulously cared for. William, without thinking, followed him, both men working side by side to cover the plants and secure loose items against the onslaught of the storm. "Grab that tarp," Marcus shouted, pointing to a large piece of plastic that had been left lying in the grass. William sprinted toward it, a surprising burst of adrenaline propelling him forward. As they worked together, the rain soaked through their clothes, but neither man cared. They were caught up in the urgency of the moment, their differences forgotten in the face of nature's fury. "Over here!" Marcus called, and William rushed to his side, helping him secure the tarp over a cluster of blooming roses. Their hands brushed against each other, and for the first time they shared a fleeting moment of camaraderie, a team bound by a shared goal. "Why do you care so much about these flowers?" William asked, breathless from the exertion, his voice barely audible over the roar of the rain. "They're my escape," Marcus replied, securing the last corner of the tarp. "When I'm out here, I can forget about everything else, the bills, the struggles, the weight of being a single father. These flowers remind me that beauty can still thrive even in the harshest conditions." William paused, taking in Marcus's words. He had never considered the garden in that light. To him, it had always been a part of his estate, a symbol of wealth and status. But now, as he watched Marcus care for it, he saw something deeper, a labor of love, an expression of hope. "You're not just a gardener," William said, the realization dawning on him. "You're a caretaker of beauty, of memories." Marcus looked up, his expression softening. "And you're not just a businessman. You're a man carrying the weight of your family's legacy, trying to find meaning in it." As the storm raged on, they took refuge under the wooden gazebo that stood at the edge of the garden, water streaming off the roof in sheets. They were both drenched, but the adrenaline of their efforts had pushed aside the discomfort. The storm outside mirrored the tempest of emotions brewing within them. "Tell me about her," William said, his voice low, almost lost in the sound of the rain. "Your mother. What was she like?" Marcus hesitated, looking out into the rain-soaked garden. She was strong, fiercely devoted to her family. She worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table, but she always found time to tell stories, to teach me about the beauty of life, even when it was hard. She believed in hope, in resilience. That necklace, it was her constant reminder of that belief. William found himself captivated by Marcus's words, an unexpected connection forming between them. "My mother was complicated," he admitted, his gaze turning to the ground. "She was loving but distant. She had her demons, especially after my father died. I often felt like I was competing for her attention, for her love." Silence enveloped them as the rain continued to fall, each man lost in his own memories. The storm began to subside, but the emotional weight lingered in the air, heavy yet liberating. "Maybe we both carry burdens that we don't need to bear alone," Marcus suggested, his voice gentle. "Perhaps there's a way to share them, to understand each other better." William looked at Marcus, seeing not just the gardener who tended to his estate, but a man who had faced hardships and emerged with a sense of purpose. "I've spent so much time chasing after success, after wealth, thinking that it would fill the void left by my mother, but I'm starting to realize that it doesn't work that way." Marcus nodded, a spark of understanding igniting between them. "True wealth isn't about what you have, it's about what you give, what you create, and the connections you make with others." As the last hints of the storm faded, the sun began to break through the clouds, casting a warm glow over the drenched garden. William felt a shift within himself, a questioning of everything he had deemed important. In that moment, as they stood side by side, 2 men from different worlds, they shared a newfound respect, a recognition that their lives, while vastly different, were not as disconnected as they had once thought. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a golden hue over the lush gardens that surrounded William Harrington's estate. The air was thick with the scent of blooming flowers, but within Marcus Thompson's heart, a storm brewed. His daughter, Lily, had fallen ill with a fever that showed no signs of abating, and the mounting medical bills loomed over him like dark clouds threatening a downpour. As he knelt beside a patch of daisies, Marcus felt a wave of helplessness wash over him. The necklace around his neck, a cherished heirloom from his mother, now felt like a heavy weight. It had always symbolized hope and resilience, but now it felt like a shackle binding him to a past he could no longer afford to cling to. "I'm sorry, Mom," he whispered, fingers brushing the pendant, "but I have to do this for Lily." The decision tormented him. He had always promised himself that he would keep the necklace safe, a piece of his mother's love to pass down to Lily. But as he thought about the bills piling up and the treatments that his daughter desperately needed, practicality wrestled with sentimentality. "What good is this necklace if I can't save my own child?" he murmured, his voice cracking. Meanwhile, deep within his estate, William paced the marble floors of his expansive living room, his mind racing. He had found himself increasingly drawn to Marcus and the struggles that had begun to unfold before him. After their initial confrontations, William had come to see Marcus not just as a gardener, but as a man fighting to keep his family afloat in a world that seemed determined to drown him. The idea of offering help had crossed his mind more than once, but he hesitated. How could he extend a hand without revealing his identity? "Maybe it's time to stop being a coward," he muttered to himself as he stopped by the window overlooking the gardens. He could see Marcus, his shoulders slumped, lost in thought. "He needs support, and I can provide it." William's thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. It was Sarah, his assistant, a sharp and perceptive woman who had worked alongside him for years. "William, do you have a moment?" she asked, stepping into the room, concern etched on her face. He turned to her, forcing a smile. "Of course, Sarah, what's on your mind?" "It's about the charity auction next week. I believe we should prepare for it more thoroughly. It's a chance to give back, and perhaps it could help you heal as well, she suggested, her tone gentle yet firm. William nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. I've been thinking about that. I want to contribute more, maybe even anonymously. There's something I want to do for someone in need. William, that's admirable, Sarah encouraged, raising an eyebrow. Is this about Marcus? I've seen you both together. He seems to be a good man. William grimaced slightly, uncertain about how much to share. He is, but it's complicated. I don't want to get involved in his life without him knowing who I am. Sometimes people need help, and it's our job to provide it whether they know the giver or not, Sarah said, her voice steady. You have the means to make a difference. Don't let pride or fear hold you back. Her words struck a chord, and William felt a surge of determination. You're right, Sarah. I'll do it. As dusk settled, Marcus sat at the edge of his bed, staring at the medical bills that seemed to multiply overnight. Lily was asleep, her small frame curled up under a soft blanket, a faint sheen of sweat glistening on her forehead. He brushed a strand of hair away from her face, his heart aching. I'll do whatever it takes, my little fighter, he whispered, his resolve strengthening. The next day, with a heavy heart, Marcus made his way to a local pawn shop, the familiar jingle of the bell echoing as he stepped inside. The shop was cluttered with items of varying value, but all he could focus on was the glimmer of his necklace as he clutched it tightly in his palm. Looking to sell something? The shopkeeper asked, eyeing him with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Marcus hesitated, the warmth of the pendant against his skin reminding him of his mother's love. I need to sell this, he finally said, forcing the words out as if they were a bitter pill. It's valuable. The shopkeeper leaned forward, intrigued. Let's take a look then. As he examined the necklace, Marcus felt a pang of guilt. This belonged to my mother, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. It's a family heirloom. Family heirloom, huh? Could be worth a pretty penny, the shopkeeper replied, his eyes glinting with interest. But it's up to you. What's it worth to you? Marcus took a deep breath, battling the tears that threatened to spill. It's worth everything, but I can't afford to keep it right now, he confessed. My daughter needs medical care. A flicker of sympathy crossed the shopkeeper's face. I understand. Let's see what I can offer you. As they negotiated, Marcus felt a weight lifting off his shoulders, even as a part of him mourned the loss of the necklace. It felt like a betrayal to his mother, but he had to prioritize Lily's health. Days passed, and William, fueled by his desire to help Marcus, began to devise a plan. He had heard from Sarah about a local charity auction that focused on health and wellness. It struck him that this could be the perfect opportunity to make a significant impact while remaining anonymous. He worked tirelessly, auctioning items that had once been mere decor in his home, but now held the potential to change someone's life. He could feel the excitement building as he envisioned Marcus attending the event, perhaps even receiving the help he so desperately needed. As the day of the auction approached, Marcus found himself torn. He had sold the necklace, but the money had only covered a fraction of Lily's mounting medical bills. He felt like a ship lost at sea, battling against waves of despair. One evening, while sitting in the small living room of their modest apartment, Marcus received a message from an unknown number. Curiosity piqued. He opened it to find a simple text. I'd like to help you and your daughter. Can we meet? His heart raced. Who could it be? The hope ignited a flicker of excitement, but doubt quickly followed. Could it be a scam? Or worse, someone looking to take advantage of his situation? After a moment of hesitation, he replied, agreeing to meet in a nearby cafe the following day. As he prepared for the encounter, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was a pivotal moment in his life, a chance to change not just his future but also that of his daughter. The next day, as he sat at a small table, he scanned the cafe for the stranger who had reached out. Who would it be? The door swung open, and in walked William, his heart pounding as he recognized the man who had once confronted him about the necklace. "Marcus," William said, approaching with a warm, albeit nervous smile. "I'm glad you came." Marcus's brow furrowed in confusion. You're the one who texted me?" "Yes," William admitted, gesturing for him to sit. "I want to help you. I know you're going through a tough time with Lily's health." "How do you know about that?" Marcus questioned, suspicion creeping into his voice. "I've been watching you," William said, leaning forward earnestly. "Not in a creepy way, I promise. I've been moved by your story and want to do something good. You don't have to worry about who I am. Just know that I want to help." Marcus hesitated, skepticism battling with the flicker of hope that had ignited within him. "And why would you do that? You don't owe me anything." "Maybe not," William replied, his voice steady. "But I want to. I'd like to help pay for Lily's medical expenses. You deserve a chance to focus on her without the burden of financial stress." Tears welled in Marcus's eyes as he struggled to process the offer. "You don't even know me. Why would you care?" "Because I see you, Marcus. I see the love you have for your daughter. I see the sacrifices you're making. And it reminds me of what truly matters in life," William said softly. "Let me help you." In that moment, Marcus felt a surge of emotion, gratitude, disbelief, and a glimmer of hope. He realized that perhaps this was the beginning of a new chapter, one that would intertwine their lives in ways neither of them could have anticipated. As they sat together, the weight of their pasts began to lift, replaced by the promise of a brighter future, one built on understanding, compassion, and the shared goal of healing. As the evening sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a warm golden hue across the grand hall of the charity auction, William Harrington stood before a gathering of prominent figures, poised and confident. The air was thick with anticipation as he prepared to unveil his plan to establish a foundation honoring his late mother's legacy. He cleared his throat, allowing the silence to envelop the room, and began to speak. "Ladies and gentlemen," he started, his voice steady yet imbued with emotion. "Tonight, we gather not just to raise funds, but to remember a woman whose life was dedicated to helping others. My mother believed in the power of community, in the idea that we are stronger together." He paused, glancing at the guests who nodded in agreement, their eyes reflecting admiration and respect. As he continued, the doors swung open, and Marcus Thompson stepped inside, his heart racing. Dressed in his best but still feeling out of place among the opulence surrounding him, he scanned the crowd until his gaze landed on William. The transformation in the man who once stood before him demanding answers was striking. William exuded a sense of purpose, an air of humility that Marcus had never witnessed before. It stirred something deep within him, a flicker of hope. William's speech resonated with Marcus, who felt a swell of pride and disbelief at how far this man had come. "Tonight, I announce the creation of the Harrington Foundation, dedicated to providing education and resources to those in need. It is my hope that we can all contribute to a brighter future for our community." Just as Marcus was about to step forward to share the significance of the necklace and how it tied their lives together, a commotion erupted at the entrance. An unexpected figure barged into the hall, his presence commanding and unwelcome. It was William's estranged uncle, Richard Harrington, a man whose reputation for deceit and greed preceded him. "William!" Richard's voice boomed, cutting through the excitement like a knife. "What nonsense is this? You think you can simply erase our family's legacy with some charity work? You don't know the first thing about our history." His eyes darted around the room, locking onto Marcus with a predatory glint. "And who is this? A gardener playing dress-up?" The tension in the room thickened, William's expression darkened, anger boiling beneath the surface. "You shouldn't be here, Richard. This is not your place. You've never cared about our family's legacy. You only care about your own interests." Richard stepped closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "You think you're so noble, don't you? But you don't know the truth about that necklace. It's not just a piece of jewelry. It's a key to our family's history, dark and twisted as it is. Your mother took it from me, William. It belongs to me." Gasps rippled through the crowd as William's face paled. "What are you talking about?" he demanded, disbelief lacing his voice. "That necklace was my mother's. It was a gift to her from her mother, a symbol of love and resilience." Richard laughed mockingly, the sound echoing ominously in the hall. "Ah, but you see, William, family heirlooms have a way of disappearing when certain people get involved. Your mother was not the saint you believed her to be. She stole that necklace from me when I was vulnerable and took advantage of a family tragedy." His eyes gleamed with malice as he continued. "And now you want to honor her? You don't even know what she truly did." The crowd was silent, the tension palpable. Marcus felt a surge of protectiveness for William, even though their paths had been so different. He stepped forward, his voice steady and clear. "That necklace means something to me too. It belonged to my mother, who passed it down as a symbol of hope. It's not just a piece of jewelry, it carries memories and love." Richard turned his gaze to Marcus, contempt dripping from his words. "And what do you know about our family? You're a mere gardener, a nobody. You have no right to speak here." "Enough," William's voice thundered, silencing the room. "You are not going to tarnish my mother's memory any longer, Richard. What you're doing is despicable. You've always been driven by greed, and it ends tonight." He took a step closer to his uncle, his resolve hardening. "You think you can manipulate me with your lies? I'm no longer the naive boy you once knew. I've learned that true wealth is not in material possessions, but in the connections we forge and the lives we impact. You are the one who's lost sight of what truly matters." As the two men faced off, Marcus felt a sense of camaraderie with William. They were both fighting against the shadows of their pasts, both seeking to reclaim their identities against the weight of their family histories. Marcus took a deep breath, emboldened by the moment. "William, let's show him that we can rise above this. We can take back what belongs to us and honor our mothers in the process." William nodded, gratitude shining in his eyes. "You're right, Marcus. Together, we can build something beautiful, something that transcends this darkness." He turned to Richard, his voice steady. "You will not take this away from us. We will tell our story, and we will ensure that the truth prevails." With a final glare, Richard turned on his heel and stormed out of the hall, his threats echoing in the silence he left behind. The guests began to murmur, their expressions a mix of shock and admiration for the confrontation that had just unfolded. William turned to Marcus, a newfound sense of purpose igniting within him. "Thank you for standing with me. I couldn't have done it without you." Marcus smiled, his heart swelling with emotion. "We've both been through so much. This is just the beginning. Let's create a foundation that not only honors our mothers, but empowers others to rise above their circumstances." As they joined forces, the weight of the past began to lift. The necklace, once a symbol of loss and betrayal, transformed into a beacon of hope, a reminder that true wealth lies in relationships and the lives we touch. Marcus decided to keep the necklace, knowing it would serve as a testament to their journey together. The charity auction resumed, but the atmosphere had shifted. Conversations sparked with enthusiasm, and people began to rally around the idea of the Harrington Foundation. William and Marcus stood side by side, united in their mission to create a brighter future, proving that even in the darkest moments, redemption is possible through connection, compassion, and courage. As the night drew to a close, William felt a sense of peace envelop him. He was no longer haunted by the shadows of his past. Instead, he was ready to embrace a future filled with purpose and community, hand in hand with a man who had taught him what it truly meant to be wealthy.